The U.S. and Ukraine have agreed to an economic deal after a weeks-long press by President Donald Trump calling on Ukraine to compensate Washington for billions in military and economic assistance to repel the Russian invasion. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said in a video posted on X on Wednesday that the partnership enables America to invest in Ukraine, unlocking the country's assets to enhance investment climate and accelerate economic recovery.
Thanks to President Trump's tireless efforts to secure a lasting peace, I am glad to announce the signing of today's historic economic partnership agreement between the United States and Ukraine, establishing the United States-Ukraine Reconstruction Investment Fund. This partnership allows the United States to invest alongside Ukraine to unlock Ukraine's growth assets, mobilize American talent, capital, and governance standards that will improve Ukraine's investment climate and accelerate Ukraine's economic recovery. The Development Finance Corporation will participate and help to establish this fund in collaboration with the government of Ukraine. Today's agreement signals clearly to Russian leadership that the Trump administration is committed to a peace process centered on a free, sovereign, and prosperous Ukraine over the long term. It's time for this cruel and senseless war to end. The killing must stop, and both the United States and the government of Ukraine look forward to quickly operationalizing this historic economic partnership for both the Ukrainian and American people.
For Ukraine, the agreement is seen as key to ensuring its access to future U.S. military aid. The National Post's Adam Zivo joined us from Ukraine this morning for more on the significance of the deal.
The significance of this deal cannot be understated. It essentially locks the United States and Ukraine into an ongoing economic partnership that ensures that American taxpayers feel as if they've been adequately compensated for the assistance that they've provided going forward. Now, an important distinction between this draft of the deal and a draft that was published earlier this year is that it doesn't portray previous military aid to Ukraine as a loan. So in the initial draft, essentially, Ukraine was expected to retroactively pay the United States back for military aid, which had initially been portrayed as a gift. And that's, of course, something that would have significantly discredited U.S. military support because other allies wouldn't be able to trust that if they received aid that was framed as a gift from the U.S., that, they wouldn't be on the hook for repaying it later. So that was a huge benefit. On top of that, this agreement ensured that Ukrainian sovereignty was maintained. That was something that was explicitly stated within the deal. And that, of course, ensured that that Ukraine was able to comply with its obligations to the EU and continue down its EU membership path. And on top of that, so Ukraine and the United States were portrayed as 50-50 partners where neither was allowed to fully dominate the other. Ukraine was given essentially full control over how its resources are developed. And that's something which, once again, is much fairer compared to the initial deal where the United States was given sweeping control over Ukraine's natural resource industry going forward. I mean, in the original draft, the United States essentially was going to turn Ukraine into an economic colony and would have had, for example, almost total control over what licenses are granted. That's all gone. Here you see real reciprocity and real mutual respect. So I think that the current draft is, of course, a huge benefit for Ukraine. Well, it is crucial that the United States maintain its military support for Ukraine. Ukraine is becoming increasingly autonomous when it comes to its military needs. So as of now, it produces around 40% of its weapons and receives about 30% from the EU and then 30% from the United States. So Ukraine can survive without Washington's help, but obviously it's much more difficult. And with the front lines being, quite dire sometimes, everything helps. However, I think that American voters haven't been told in some cases how much this aid actually assists them, right? How with less than 5% of their annual defense budget, they've been able to empower Ukraine to cripple one of the United States' key global geopolitical rivals, right? And that's an oversight, unfortunately. And so many American taxpayers are saying, well, what's in it for us? So this deal ensures that these taxpayers feel as if they're being adequately compensated for their support and that, this money is not just coming completely out of their pockets and that Ukrainians are paying for their aid, their own military assistance through this economic partnership. Now, an important provision that was in this contract, this economic agreement that was once again missing from the earlier one, is that for the first 10 years, all revenues that are created, through this natural resource industry, through this partnership, are reinvested back into Ukraine, right? So we can see then that this revenue will be actually used to keep Ukraine safe rather than just to extract Ukraine's wealth to enrich American investors while Ukraine remains vulnerable and in a state of war.